Hey folks, and welcome to the shop. Man, I am real excited about this week's episode because I have a time capsule. It's an old vintage wooden tackle box, just chock full of old fishing equipment. This was given to me by my friend Jack Norman, and it once belonged to his father. I went up to see Jack and go fishing with him a couple of weeks ago, and he set this out on his tailgate and opened it up and showed me a few of the things in there, but I didn't get a chance to look at it very good. So I'm going to be looking at this for the first time almost. A lot of the stuff that's in there for the first time with you here today, and I'm looking forward to that. Welcome to the shop series. This is a series where we just hang out here in my shop. I like to collect old fishing equipment, actually all kinds of old vintage stuff, and talk about them in this series, and that's what we're going to do today. Now, I've come across several of these old wooden tackle boxes and old tackle boxes, and I always look at, anytime I'm at a yard sale or estate sale or an antique shop or something, I always look for them because they can be absolute time capsules, and they tell you a whole lot about the original owner. Here's some others that I had. There's an old metal box, plastic Plano box down there. There's an old cedar box, another metal box back there, a couple of metal boxes there, some Umco boxes. So I always enjoy looking through these things, and let's get to looking at this one because it's fascinating. Now, first of all, a little bit about Jack. So Jack and I fished together for quite a bit, and we used to fish together a lot more than we have now, both when we were back when we were striper fishing pretty hard, and I fished with him down his place in Chincoteague a few times. Jack is an experienced junkie. He just he loves to get out and do stuff, and he's in his 70s now and still going out and fishing. We were fishing blue line streams for brook trout last weekend, but he told me, he said, I just really don't care a whole lot about stuff. But I know you do, and you probably will be able to take care of this and preserve it a little better than I can, so I want you to have it, and that was very kind of him. So first of all, let's see what this box tells us about Jack's father. I never met Jack's father, don't know anything about him, other than just a little bit that Jack told me, and I do know that he was in World War II and traveled around some. The quality of this box is incredible. In fact, it's probably the best built box I've ever seen, wooden box that I've ever seen. The seams are tight. The nails or screws are countersunk and filled. The hardware is first class, leather handle, hinge on the back. Really cool. And I don't know what kind of wood it is. It may be cherry. It's not oak. I'm not sure what it is. Anyway, it's cool. All right, let's get into it. Oh my goodness. First of all, the smell. It smells like leather and licorice. Old leather and licorice. Every tackle box smells different. This cork work in here is good. Really nicely put together. First thing that jumps out at me is this watch. Let's see, it says Chesterfield, 17 jewels. What's that word? Inca block. There's a serial number on the back. Swiss made. Very interesting. This looks like a military style watch to me. I'm not a watch expert, but it looks like a watch that might have been sold during World War II, maybe even in Europe to American GIs. It's probably worth as much today as it was when it was originally sold. These Swiss-made watches hold their value, so that's a really cool artifact right there. Green Cap floats by the Dayton Company. You know about those if you watch my shop series, because I just told you about the lawsuit that happened in my last episode involving Dayton floats, and there's some of my round ones that I cherish over there. Let's look at the lures. Let's start on this side. These are mirror lures. That one's kind of corroded a little bit. There's a little tiny one for creek fishing. I'm going to say probably 70s, 80s. This is, I thought, yeah, that's a Shakespeare swimming mouse. It looks brand new. It looks like it's never been used. It's wood, but it's not particularly old. I'm going to say probably that might be 80s too, maybe 70s. There's these South Bend Midgerinos. These are wood, 60s. maybe 50s. Really interesting plugs, good plugs. So you might remember that I did, back when I was doing the Chesapeake Minute series, I did a story on Hawaiian wigglers, and these are spare skirts. I'm glad they're still in that plastic, because if they got against these lures, they really mess them up, especially these plastic lures. Here's a flatfish. I've got some flatfish in my collection, you see there. And this is a creek chub, obviously. It's plastic. It's a plastic creek chub, 1980s. I don't recognize this lure. I don't know what that is. If you know what this lure is, let me know. A lot of these lures that are divided like this are mirror lures, but I don't think that is. It's plastic, red and white with sequin eyes. Jitterbug. More flatfish. These are river runts. These are plastic river runts. These are mid-1980s. Insect repellent. It smells a little bit like licorice. So you could use this not only to keep the chiggers off of you, but also to make your lure smell like fish might want to bite them. I don't think I said that exactly right. Let's dig down. Oh, well, there's some more hooks and stuff in here too. Oh, Orvis leader. Well, let's see if it's got a label on there. So we know he's a fly fisherman now, and it does have a date on here, 7/29/1965. So that fits. So very cool. Let's go down a layer. Oh, we got more. Oh, there's a crazy crawler. That's a head and lure. Look at that safety pin for a snap swivel. Here's some cream worms. You know about those. I just did an episode on those. These are refills for cream worms. Cream worms were the first plastic worms ever invented. This is a super duper. That doesn't look like much of a fishing lure, does it? Man, they're fish catchers. This one's never been opened, still in the package. Looks like the top of the package has been cut off a little bit. Spoon plugs, and these don't look like they've ever been used, and that's pretty typical for a spoon plug. Here's another one. People would buy them. I think they attracted fishermen more than they attracted fish. And so you find a lot of them, they're brand new in tackle boxes, and they never get up the nerve to throw them because they really don't look like something a fish would bite. But I'm sure that they'll catch fish too. Here's several different spoons here. Now, there's a Daredevil spoon. You see, I've got a Daredevil collection, and I did a shop series on Daredevil not long ago. Some other spoons. Look at these. Oh, that's a cool little spoon. Looks like something from Egypt or something. It says the Thruman Chelly. No, there's three like that. There's a Johnson Silver Minnow. That's an iconic spoon. There's a Shad Dart. I just did the series, shop series on Pequay, Pennsylvania, and the Shad Darts, the invention of the Shad Darts. This is this looks like a salesman sample. It would double as a business card, but they give you a hook. Yeah, and that's what it is. Eagle claw hooks. There's something hiding down there. I don't recognize this lure, and I probably should, because that looks like a good one. Well, there's one to look up. If you know what it is, hit me up. I don't know what it is, but it's fascinating. Look at these old flies. So these are mouse flies. So I know a little bit about the fly fishing up there in Pennsylvania, and these guys like to go out at night in some of the streams up there, and they'll catch some giant brown trout in the summertime on these mice lures. Some other spoons. There's a Hellbender. Let's keep going. Uh-oh. First of all, where do we start here? Oh my goodness, this looks like it's fishing license. Look at that. Maybe a cicada lure. Getting ready to have a cicada hatch here on the East Coast. Fishing's going to get really good. This is a Pennsylvania fishing license. So in Pennsylvania, I think you're still required, if you live there, to display your fishing license on your person somewhere, on your body, on your hat, or on your vest or your coat or whatever. And this is John F. Norman. Gives his address, Lehighton, Pennsylvania. That's I think that's above Allentown. His birth date was 12/20/1921. He was 66 years old, and this was issued in 1988. So that fits with what we've seen with the dates of the plugs. We haven't seen anything over here that was later than the mid-'80s. And he's still fishing in 1988, so he's probably still buying some plugs and lures and stuff now and then. Here's a leather, that's a hook sharpener every fisherman should have. That is, you know what that is. You light that with a match, and when your rod tip comes off, you glue it back on. That's glue. This is a de-hooker, some sinkers, hooks, various stuff. There's some little tiny hooks, so he probably tying his own flies. And look at this. This looks like a cigarette holder, and it's got a map of India on there, old India. So Pakistan is up here now, and I think some of this area over here is different countries too. India was divided up. I can't remember, my history's not too good, but maybe right after World War II, maybe early 50s. So this would have been before, and I bet, like that watch that we saw in the first tray, I would imagine that this cigarette holder was made to sell to GIs, and it's top quality. It's a good quality thing, just like everything else in this box. And that tells us a lot about this gentleman, that he cared about quality items right down to the way he constructed his box. So that's, I think that's cool. Let's look at this. So I just opened it up, and there's his name, J.F. Norman, India, 1945, right smack in the middle of World War II. They were stationed in India. There were some U.S. troops stationed in India and a lot of British troops in India. It was a British territory. Here it's got all the places he was stationed, starting at Fort Meade in Maryland and ending in India. How cool is that? Just fascinating. All right, let's look now at the bottom drawer. And I already know there's some fishing reels in here because Jack showed them to me whenever he put it on the end of his tailgate, but I don't remember exactly what the fishing reels were, except that there were some fly reels. So. Look at that. We just did a shop series on Mitchell 300s. It's iconic reel from the 1950s and 60s. And the GIs would get them during World War II and bring them home. And it wouldn't surprise me if this is a French-made reel, and it is, made in France. He may have bought that in India or somewhere in Europe and brought it home. It has the original box that it came in. Turn that box over. Show you what the back of. Well, it's stuck to the bottom. I'm not going to pick it up because it'll tear up the box. Some spare spools. There's another spare spool back there. All right, let's get into these reels. So before we look at the Medalist, you recognize this reel. This is a Pfluger reel as well. This is a Pfluger Progress. The Progress line, I think they started in 1920s or so, and they were done by the 1950s. But it made in USA reel. Still in great shape. You could use that reel. It's got some monofilament line on there. I bet Mr. Norman didn't do that. That looks like something a kid might have done later and who needed a fishing reel to go out and fish with and put that on there, and you can see it didn't work too well for him. It wouldn't surprise me if young Jack Norman didn't do that. Very fascinating. Pfluger Medalist. So I did a series on Pfluger Medalist not too long ago. You might remember. And I told you during that time that it's not too difficult to date these because there are identifying characteristics in all of them. Now this one, not in great shape, doesn't look like. It's been used pretty good. It's got some worm burn on there that's making the paint come off. But one of the keys to identification is that center cap. And you see this one says Pfluger Medalist trademark made in USA. So that tells me several things. First of all, the fact that it says trademark and it has that on the center, they only did that in the 1940s and 1950s. So that tells me, it narrows it down to 20 years. I know it was done between the 1940s and 1950s. Let's go down, drill down a little more. There's some writing down here on the bottom. And it says Diamond Light line guard. That's the line guard. And those line guards are consistent through the 50s and through the 40s and 50s. Number 1495, that's the size of the reel. This would have been like a 6 or 7 weight reel, made in Akron, Ohio, USA. That's the key right there. So I think they only said made in Akron, Ohio in the late 1950s, maybe 1959 or so. So that's when that reel was made. Still got the original line on there, and it's a cool old reel, iconic reel. You can still go out and fish with that reel today and do a good job. Here just looks like another one in the box. It's a 1495 box. A little newer box than the other one. Oh my goodness. So there's original hang tag for when that reel was sitting on the shelf in the tackle shop. Original catalog, and there's a reel. What's the first thing you notice about the center plate on this one? Well, it does not say trademark, and what else does it not say? It doesn't say made in USA. So that tells us that this reel was made after 1979, because all the Pflueger medalists were made elsewhere in 1979, after 1979. This doesn't look too much older than that, though, because of the style of the box. So I'm going to put it 79, early 80s, maybe. A Japanese-made reel, and I bet it says, yep, made in Japan, right on the bottom there. So cool reel, but not quite as valuable. They made a lot of these reels, and there's, some of these Pflueger medalists, the older ones, are very valuable. I don't see a whole lot of value in these, but it's still quality equipment. It's still really good stuff that a lot of anglers wouldn't spend that much money during the time that this stuff was bought on this kind of equipment. This is a leather line polisher kit. It's just got felt inside. You run your line. You see where the line has left marks there. Clean your line when you're out on the water. This Weller Bass Hawk. That's a cool lure. It cost $1. I'm going to put this in the 60s. So I could do a whole shop series just on this particular lure. What's cool about it is you see that white in there. That's a strip of lambskin. So there's a little container in there that would contain spare strips. It's a weedless spoon is all it is, but you put those lamb strips on there and they would soften up in the water and give the lure a whole lot more action, kind of like pork rind, kind of the same concept as pork line. So that's really cool. There's some more hooks and sinkers and a spare spool back there. Let's see what's in here. It looks like some fly tying material, little hooks, some felt, more. There's another fly back there. How cool is that? So we'll close this back up, and I'll put it back together and clean some of this stuff up a little bit and make sure that we preserve it the way it should be preserved. This box tells me a lot about Mr. Norman. It tells me he liked quality equipment. He was probably a good fisherman. He's using the same kind of lures that I probably would have been using back in that time if I was living then. I'm not quite that old. But it's a really interesting time capsule. Now we know a lot more about this angler because of looking at his tackle box. The whole theme of this show has been, we don't know where we're going unless we figure out where we've been. We can't figure out where we're going unless we know where we've been. I guess I should say it that way. And this is no exception. So thank you for tuning in, folks, to this episode. If you hadn't hit the subscribe button, I hope you will. This one's a little longer than some of the ones, and if you've made it this far, I really appreciate it. Your likes and shares, absolutely appreciate it, and tell your friends about it if you've watched. We've got over 50,000 views so far to the shop series since we started back in the winter. So thanks again, and I'll see you next time.